What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes show. Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the weekend, Scott? I did. Despite the loss of the series, 2 out of 3, that was fun. That was pretty fun.
No, it was a fun series. I think that it just feels different when you get the Dodgers in town. Fox made it seem like it was a World Series game with all of like the intro bits and like narrated pieces that they did. I was like, my God, there's more production value going into this Saturday game in June than there has been in some postseason World Series games. They brought in Torrey to do some voiceover. Like they really were trying to hit the whole thing on the nostalgia piece. So it was good though. I really the first game obviously being a pitcher's duel could have gone either way. Yankees obviously had a hard time with the bats, and then so it was a competitive series. It wasn't like it was a non-competitive series, even though they lost the overall count. But I thought it was fun.
It's kind of sad Soto didn't play. I knew he wasn't going to play. I knew he wasn't going to play Friday after you pull him out of a game at whatever it was, 10 o'clock at night on Thursday. Like, he's not going to play on Friday. But I thought there was an outside chance he would play Saturday or Sunday. And the fact that he didn't get in any of the games, it does put a little bit of a wet blanket on the series. Not that it wasn't still fun. Like, the atmosphere was electric. All the players were talking about it. They were sellout crowds, loud crowds. Yeah, you're right. I mean, between Apple, Fox, Sunday night.
You listened to
ESPN
anything
baseball.
that was on Apple? I tuned that one. I definitely turned down.
Well, I as I told you, I was reminded late on Friday afternoon that it was a date night, so I had to go. I was going out to dinner, following on my phone, but I got back in time to see the extra innings. So I guess I listened to the Apple broadcast for whatever it was, like 2+ innings.
Yeah, which blows my mind still. The fact that you had known about it, forgotten about it, and then as the babysitter is showing up, you're like, oh yeah, date night. Like I don't see how in any scenario that's possible that you are alarmed that late into the evening that you're going out. Or that you're not aware.
Do you actually want to know how like all that goes down? Because
I don't
Okay.
I don't right now. It's more of a rhetorical comment. It's because I'm thinking about it in my life where that would never in a million years be able to happen, because I'd be reminded 15 times. 2, I'd be getting harassed endlessly to get ready, well before
the I literally
babysitter.
Put on jeans. I wore the same polo I was wearing on Friday, and I do
the same thing, but I'm still harassed to get ready so that we're not quote late. Then we wait there for 20 minutes for the other people to show up.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you that first of all, something tells me Fox got better ratings on this Saturday night game in June than they got last year for the World Series between the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. So that's why they
possible.
put.
That's why extra production dollars that rolled over.
That's why they put all their production value into this game. Yeah. It was fun though. It really was fun. Like I don't know, like the fact that every season we're going to see the Dodgers now because of the balanced schedule. I remember last year when they were in LA, that was also a fun series. I was drawing parallels, the ironic bad parallels between the fact that was the weekend last year Judge went down with the injury, and now we've got Soto missing from the Yankees lineup this weekend against the Dodgers. So it's kind of like a weird coincidence of those things. Yeah. But we're going to talk about the positives and negatives.
And real quick, the introduction or the preview that you guys did with what's it, Dodger Heads? Is that the name of the pod? He's good. I thought it was really good, and he nailed.
I don't think anyone's nailed an X Factor prediction as hard as Jeff nailed that.
Yeah, he did. That was with the Teoscar Hernandez call. My God, did that man destroy the Yankees this weekend?
Which is why I was happy that Dave Roberts took the bat out of his hand late in that game yesterday, trying to bunt. Like, yeah, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah, well, Dave Roberts still gives me the creeps when I see him.
Agree. Let's talk about the positives first. The number one positive for the Yankees was Aaron Judge. 7 for 11 in the series, 3 homers, 5 runs driven in. He's potentially on the best stretch of his career when you just look at the raw numbers. 30 extra base hits in a 30-game span. That's in the same category as Joe DiMaggio. So far on the season, 305 batting average, 436 on base, 703 slugging, which is insane. Over an 1100 OPS, 215 WRC plus, meaning he is 115% more than double better than just like your average standard player. And if you compare that to his MVP 62 homer season, the numbers are right in line: 311, 425, 686 for the slash line numbers. He picked up all the slack that Juan Soto left off this weekend with him being out of the lineup. The only problem was the rest of the guys really didn't do much.
Yeah, it's true. And then, when you look back at history, every single time his name comes up now, it's there with DiMaggio, Ruth, Gehrig, Mantle, like hard stop. Every single of these standings that they show with whatever category it is, he's right there. And my God, is this man completely locked in? And you're right. It's just it's showing us what life is like, without some support around him. It's not showing us what life is like. It's reminding us what life is like.
Yeah, I was going to say, because what does those first two games look like offensively? Did they look a lot like last year?
Yeah. And I know everybody was saying that too. And I'm like, come on, guys, two games. Let's not go down this hole. And it does feel different. I don't know. The guy is so dynamic and such a known impact spot in that lineup that when you remove him, it's very, very different. I mean, you just attack a lineup completely different.
Here is the trickle-down effect of Juan Soto being out. Alex Verdugo gets moved up to second, and then last night, Trent Grisham, who I know, hit the home run to win the game. But do we want Trent Grisham hitting fifth? No, we do not want Trent Grisham hitting fifth. So that is the impact of Soto being out of the lineup. Everything needs to shuffle around. And when you have guys struggling. I mean, Rizzo gets benched last night, essentially, and there's articles being written that he might be benched for a couple games just to try and get his mind back on track and maybe his mechanics back on track.
Yeah.
Glaber just being flat out inconsistent. LeMahieu not finding it yet at the plate coming back from his injury. When Soto's out, that lineup gets way, way thinner, way, way more top heavy. And it just sort of is centered, like Judge is the central piece, obviously, but when that central piece goes from Soto and Judge just to Judge, boy, is that easier to attack.
Is it a coincidence that Volpe's on-base streak ended this weekend with Soto not behind him in the lineup?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't think it's a crazy coincidence. The types of pitches that he's going to get with Soto behind him compared to Verdugo behind him are a little different. They're going to be a little bit more careful with a guy who's been having such a good season and look to attack Verdugo a little bit more as well. So I'm not saying that's exactly the reason, but it's funny when you see how that does happen. Soto's out of the lineup. And again, we've talked about the impact of Juan Soto throughout this lineup, and it's not just the guys right before him and right after him. It's tremendous because it really does define the way that the opposing team attacks this lineup. You can't ever forget about a guy like Juan Soto. And when you subtract him, there's a far inferior player that is now in the Yankees lineup. Two inferior players. One is in the position of Juan Soto in the batting lineup, and then the other one is taking his spot defensively as well. So you're degrading your lineup by two spots, really, because Verdugo in the 2 spot is not what you want. Makes this lineup much more weak because then someone else has to hit in the 4 or 5 spot that's most likely not
Verdugo
going to be qualified.
In a vacuum, Verdugo hitting second isn't the
trickle down
worst
effect.
Isn't the worst thing in the world. No, of course, but I mean, it is just terribly ironic. We want Soto, and then 4 pitches later, the dude hits a bomb to win the Yankees the game. That was awesome. Okay, yes,
I love that. Actually,
that was awesome.
That makes me like him a little bit more in the sense that he stepped up to that. It was such a short, such a short swing. Like he was obviously looking for a fastball.
Yeah,
and he did that. He's done that twice in the last week. Where he's seeking a fastball.
He doesn't get hit. He hits home runs. That's it. He's got 5 hits this year, and 3 of them are home runs. And I think Logan said this in our chat last night. All 3 have given the Yankees a lead.
Yeah. Does it sound familiar? Because that sounds exactly like the script for Matt Carpenter.
Except Matt Carpenter got hits outside of just the home runs. I'm
just saying that was a larger script, a larger sample size, but it was the same exact script. It seemed like
Grisham's got a little work to do on his mustache too. Then
that's true. That mustache is a little 1920s. Like I'm an actor, but there's no voice.
And so the second positive is Trent Grisham's game-winning home run and the fact that he did it batting 5th, hearing "We Want Soto" chants in the background. That moment doesn't get much cooler than that. Though, I said this in our text group last night, Scott, that was the moment. If Soto was actually available to pinch hit in that game, that was the moment to do it. Because on the broadcast last night, I think Cone brought this up, or either Eduardo Perez or Cone brought up. I think this is how it went. Cone said, "This is the moment to pinch hit Juan Soto," and then Eduardo Perez said, "But then he has to go play defense." And then Carl Ravitch, I would have, if Carl Ravitch was in the room, I would have given him a hug. Said, "So what? What's the difference between playing the outfield and hitting?
Does he run on his forearm?
If you're healthy enough to go up there and swing a bat against Tyler Glasnow, then you are healthy enough to go play the outfield for 3 innings." And that's true. So either, we're going to talk about Juan Soto,
there's no either. We already know what it is. He just wasn't playing.
He just wasn't playing no matter what. So what's with the eyewash of, oh, he's available. He was like,
I think it's gamesmanship. I think some of it is gamesmanship.
So he's not healthy enough to pinch it on Sunday, but is he going to be in the lineup against Kansas City?
Well, no. See, now you're getting yourself into a tangle. You're working yourself into a tizzy by the way that you just said that out loud. It's not that he's not healthy enough on Sunday. It's that they're giving him the weekend to rest up. So it has nothing to do with just Sunday, and that he's going to play on Monday.
They needed the whole weekend because the forearm knows what day of the week it is.
No, it needed an extended period of rest, and I understand that. If you're going to be careful with him, if he's on the shelf, and I know we're going to hit this in a second, but just let him breathe for a few days. He hasn't had that. Why don't you see if that helps it? Because if that doesn't help it and it's still flaring up and there's no activity or not limited activity, then to me that might flag something different.
Had Juan Soto pinch hit there and hit a home run, I think the stadium actually would have crumbled.
It's possible, yes. The amount of people jumping up and down at the exact same time would have been a lot, and the structure, the engineers would have been, on the edge of their seat, I think, for that one. For whatever reason, Although calls, on Friday night, if it happened Friday night,
in
extras, it would have been even more dramatic because it was the day after.
Yeah, but that would have been awesome. But good for Trent Grisham. That, I guess, saves your spot for a couple more weeks. Who knows when Jason Dominguez comes up, what happens? But that was as big of a hit as you could possibly get, not just because it was the game winning, but to basically save being swept against the Dodgers at home.
100%. It was a massive home run. So I'm glad he had his moment. And, they've said this 100 times about Trent Grisham. He was an everyday player last year. So him coming into this team and this role is extremely different for him in how he's approached the game of baseball in the past. And I'm not saying he was a good hitter then, because he wasn't. He was better than what we have seen, but there is that adjustment period. If that period ever ends for a guy that plays every day, to then be ready for the individual moments. Obviously, playing defense, I don't think is a problem. But when you're looking at Juan Soto in that moment too, I'm like, do you really want Juan Soto to after we talked about this injury and the potential of it lasting a long time? Do you really want him getting warm at the end of the game and pinch hitting in a moment if he's not going to play the entire game? I would rather let's just give him a breather and look at the macro.
Yeah, I guess. I still wanted to see it. Yeah. The third positive, Cody Petit and the Yankees pitching staff matched Yamamoto and the Dodgers pitch for pitch on Friday night. That was obviously the pitching matchup that you're saying, oh boy, this one's not looking too good for the Yankees, and that was the biggest pitcher's duel of the weekend, ironically. But between Petit, who's been really good in his fill-in, and then going to Gonzalez, Tonkin, Ferguson, and Holmes pitching 9, and then Hamilton even pitched a clean 10th before LA got on the board in the 11th inning. But got to credit to Petit and the Yankees pitching staff on Friday night.
So Friday night, I'm curious as to what your mindset was when you saw this thing roll out, because Friday, and I know you're out on a surprise double date or whatever you're doing, and you're checking updates. And I don't know, for some reason I'm imagining you going and meeting another couple and just like you don't like the guy, you're getting angry, you're looking at all the mannerisms.
So it's funny because we walk into the restaurant and it's in Waldwick. And so it's like a 12
Ray's Pizza
minute drive, but not Ray's Pizza. I think it's called Charlie's Place. So you walk in and you walk into the bar area and there's 15 TVs. not a single one of them has the Yankees game on. And I'm like, oh, this bar must not have Apple TV. Fuck.
Right, that's probably true. That's probably true.
They got like college baseball on. They've got like some NFL network replaying like a playoff game from last year, and they just got some other bullshit on these 10 TVs around. And I'm like, I guess I'm going to have to ask the bartender if they could put on Apple TV. But we end up going back to the dining room where there's no TVs in it. And I'm like, you know what? This is better. I'm not going to be distracted just staring at a TV. Leanne won't be mad at me. Instead, I just had the game day pulled up on my phone sitting next to me. I'm texting you jackasses.
So you're seeing Petit, then you're seeing this is a tie game, low scoring, pitcher's duel. First one against the Dodgers. You get Petit, then all of a sudden Gonzalez is coming in, then Tonkin's coming in, then Ferguson's coming in. It's not like they use any high leverage guys or any guys that are in the quote circle of trust.
But they use
although
Holmes.
Tonkin seems like he's there.
I know Tonkin has shot his way up the trust leaderboard. I mean, it would have been Weaver. Why? I don't know why Weaver wasn't used on Friday.
Yeah, you would think that there would be different names.
What was his bullpen budget going into Friday's game?
Yeah, add that to the list of complaints. I hate the bullpen budget on Yes. I hate that graphic. It's so corny. But yeah, they pitched great. They pitched great. And Tonkin, like, put a fourth positive on here just about him solely, because that man who has been shuffled around from team to team and on waivers and, getting an apartment in Minnesota and then being released again and not.
Did he sell that yet?
He still got boxes in Minnesota with his wife sleeping on them, and it's crazy.
He's got unbuilt IKEA furniture in Minnesota.
Yeah. So the fact that he's been coming in, he's been pitching really well. It's give him credit. He looks like a Simpsons character with the mustache, but he's been pitching well and in like relatively high leverage situations recently, which is a little strange.
We're going to get to the negatives, but first, today's episode is brought to you by Factor Meals. I've said it, Factor Meals has saved my sanity a number of times this year. Just being able to pop something in the microwave, heat it up for 2 minutes, and then be eating a nice, healthy, and good-tasting dinner has been a lifesaver. Factor Meals delivers high-quality, fully prepared meals to you. The process is very easy. You just go on their website and choose from over 35 delicious meals each week. You can customize your deliveries with 60 different add-ons. Then highly skilled chefs prepare your food and deliver it to you. It is always fresh and never frozen. Heating the meals up only takes 2 minutes, and then there is no mess or anything like that after you're done. That is personally my favorite part. Factor is no prep, no mess, just delicious food. Head to factormeals.com/Bronx50 and use code Bronx50 for 50% off. That is half off at factormeals.com/Bronx50. Factormeals.com/Bronx50. We already touched on this one a bit, but the Yankees lineup without Soto in those, especially those first couple games, was just looking sad, giving me sad memories of the past couple seasons and how, it was Judge with the RBI single to score the fake runner in extra innings on Friday. That's the only run they got. 2 of the 3 runs in a blowout loss on Saturday were Judge home runs. And I think wasn't the other one scored on a fielder's choice or something like that. So it's just like, this offense just looks pitiful.
Yeah, it's again, the mechanics of it, when you take a lefty bat like Soto out of that 2 spot, it changes everything completely. And Friday night Yamamoto was as advertised. I don't know what your thoughts were on him, but he was.
I obviously just went back and watched the condensed game of him, but yeah, he looked
good. I mean, his fastball and his off speed, you quote off speed, I forget what it is, but I mean it breaks at the last. It almost breaks at the plate, but everything else looks exactly the same. So he's I'm sure extremely difficult to pick up, and looked like he was worth what he was what he was touted and what he was paid. So what could have been on our staff, even though we have another guy who's kind of filling those shoes.
We didn't mention Luis Hill. That was pretty awesome as well. That's a tough spot for Hill, big pressure spot for Hill. Sunday Night Baseball against Tyler Glasnow, who's one of the best pitchers in baseball, and you're trying not to get swept. And you pitched better than Tyler Glasnow.
Yeah, he pitched better. Obviously they got him towards at the end, but I thought he came out there and pitched well. It wasn't his best outing he didn't get deep into the game like he has been over the past 3 to 4 starts.
But I mean, the competition you're going up against.
But again, yes,
far and away. I mean, that is
pressure,
a ruthless.
Everything's there. Everything there, leads to what makes it feel like a postseason start. So I'm glad that he was in that moment and able to handle that moment. And then, a little adversity is not something that's terrible that happens in June. You learn from it, but you felt it. I'm glad that he felt it.
The top 5 in the Dodgers lineup is as good as you're going to find in baseball. Yeah. Probably the best top 5, just depth of and quality of the top 5 hitters.
Maybe 4. The 5th one was where they started trailing, wasn't it?
Wasn't Hernandez hitting 5th?
Well, yeah, okay. This weekend with Hernandez, yes.
I mean, Hernandez, I think, didn't he come in leading the team in RBIs? I mean, he's not like he's not a scrub.
No, he's definitely not a scrub. He's a guy that I wanted, to let's consider him in left field. He was overlooked a lot, I think. He's been good. He was good with Toronto. I thought he was a pain in the ass with Toronto. And obviously, when you put him into a lineup that's good, I when he was mic'd up, I learned more about him, and I like him as a player. Like that, you could tell that the guy he was talking about how he thrives in a big moment. He loves the pressure, and everything that he was saying, I was picking up pretty hard. So he's a guy that I had never really heard him speak a ton and talk about the game, but he's a likable guy.
Yeah. I mean, do you like those mic'd up segments?
I do.
You do.
I do.
They're not a little cringy. They're a little cringy.
Sometimes they're cringy, but I think that it's just a peek inside is fun. I'll take the cringe because usually you can get some good stuff. But yeah, the questions are terrible. But every time like there's a moment where there's an opportunity for a ball to go on it to a guy that's mic'd up, I'm in for.
Yeah, I mean they actually did because Verdugo had to go chase down that ball off the little corner near the tarp, and then the Yankees scored 2 runs I think in the inning that Teoscar was mic'd up. So there was some action.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, though, like, Heel's coming off the greatest month maybe he's ever going to have in top greatest months in Yankees franchise history for pitching. I mean, we do have to consider the competition, though. Like, look at the competition the Yankees played in May. They were fantastic in May, but the one series they lost in May was against Baltimore, a legit playoff contender. And then they won all their series, and then they lost the series to LA, a legit playoff contender. So the last 2 best teams they've played, they've lost the series. That's not me saying this team sucks, this team is doomed. That's just to point out the fact that, like, when you go up against good competition, it's not just fun in games. Luis Hill striking out 12 through 6 innings and cruising through games.
And you look at his line. I mean, he got into the 6th inning, got 2 outs into the 6th inning, which is good. He only walked 1 guy and gave up 5 hits. So he was giving up more contact and more hits to the Dodgers. Obviously, when you look at what that lineup is, it's formidable. But for the most part, it was Hernandez, Ohtani had a hit, Betts had a hit, and then you had Lux at the bottom who the Dodgers head guy was like, don't let the bottom of the order hurt you. Don't let that team hurt you towards the bottom because they've been pretty bad. But Lux gets 4 hits or 3 hits on that day. So yeah, he was giving up more contact but again he was very good and got them into almost through the 6th inning against a very good team. So I think it's a positive all around for him.
I wish I had said don't let Trent Grisham beat you.
Yeah, that would have been good.
The next negative from the weekend, Yankees defense, especially in the first 2 games. Gleyber made an error in each of the first 2 games. When he dropped that pop-up, he was trying to catch it like Cano. And listen, Gleyber, you ain't Cano, okay? Cano's smooth as butter, was smooth as butter in the field. You're not. And the line drive over Verdugo's head where he just misread the ball, came in like it was a line drive, and it kept sailing off Freeman's bat. And then there was a funny quote in that postgame from Aaron Boone where he praised Verdugo for his jump in on the ball because he read it as a line drive. And I'm like, when Neil texted us that quote, I was like, that has to be Boone being sarcastic, and that is his subtle way of sort of ribbing a guy. It's not putting a guy on blast, but it's clearly sarcastic. But then I went and watched the postgame, and he was 100% dead serious. He thought Verdugo got a good jump in on the ball.
As if the ball in the alternate universe, if the ball was truly a line
Had
drive
that been
to the spot that he was going to.
Had that been a true line sinking line drive, Verdugo got a great jump on the ball.
Yeah. You know, I think the percentage of the catch percentage of that ball was really high, if I remember correctly. But I thought off the bat, and maybe it was just an illusion because he did jump in and he broke in instead of out. I thought it looked like it may have been a tough catch. I thought it was still going to, potentially go over his head. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just an optical illusion in where he was. But yeah, that's crazy. He did mention, though, I will say Boone, to his credit, did give Glaber some shit about that catch. I mean, if you don't give him shit about that catch, like, I don't know what we're doing. But he did talk about how, that wouldn't be his approach. That, as Boone said, it wouldn't be my approach in the way I would catch that ball. But he does do it a lot. It just looks so bad when that type of thing happens, because it's not like he does that occasionally. Like, Cano used to do it and like flawlessly with no issue and like do it in stride. And Glaber has done it a number of times just like that. He's caught that ball just like that a number of times. But it looks so bad when it doesn't work. It looks so awful when it doesn't work. So it makes it not worth it any other time when you're, especially when you're a player like Glaber. You're not Robinson Cano. It's not
Robinson Cano was one of the best defensive second basemen in baseball, if not the best defensive second baseman in baseball.
Yeah, and it was fluid. Everything was fluid. And he did have like a nonchalant way about him, but it was more just because it was easy for him and it looked easy, and it was. But I understand, like there were people screaming at Robinson Cano back then too about the way that he played.
Not me,
game.
because he was filthy.
Yeah. But yeah, Glaber can't be doing that. He just can't be doing that. And then another ball that came up on him, just booted. Not great for him.
If you look at his advanced metrics, Glaber's on the fielding side, it's not awful. He's got 1 out above average, which is the 65th percentile, so a little bit better than middle of the pack. He does rank low for both arm strength and sprint speed. It's more about just like that's just like a brain fart type of play. Just run to the ball and catch the ball. Like that's, you don't need
it's not
to
a
make
brain
it
fart.
a
It's the way that he does it though. That's this thing. Like, I don't think that's a brain fart. I think that's just the way he does it. Frankly, he shouldn't have caught that ball. Someone else should have called him off, but I think he probably had the hardest play on that ball.
Yeah. All right. The third negative, and I think this is the first time a guy ends up in both the positive and the negative category. Trent Grisham not being able to execute a bunt in the 10th inning on Friday night.
Yeah.
It's tough when your utility outfielder who's playing because of an injury is in a spot to bunt over the ghost runner, and he just can't do it. Just awful attempts at bunts. Bat pointed down, pop flies. The second pitch that he tried to bunt was a meatball down the middle, and he fouled it off. Awful.
And, they were talking about his numbers with the ability to lay down that bunt. And last year he did it a number of times. So it seems like he has the ability to do that, but he executed it terribly. And in that moment, in that spot, you got to get that runner over. And when your name is Trent Grisham and they're chants going out for Juan Soto, in all of the moments, you need to be able to do your job at the bare minimum. And when it comes to a sacrifice bunt to get that runner over, you got to execute it, and he did not. So,
yeah, it was pretty disappointing in that spot, because that's a game that you should, once it goes to extra innings and you're the home team and you pitch you get out of that 10th inning with still nothing, you've got to win that game. Absolutely,
you have to. Especially when you have a guy on second base that you start the inning with. Like, you got to do that. Being able to execute is an extremely important piece of being a baseball player in those moments. And it goes back to the little things. So, and again, we've talked about this too. The Boone, not to harp on Boone, but are they drilling any of this stuff? Are they how many times is Trent Grisham in the cage laying down bunts? I don't know the answer to that. I know that they don't really do a lot of infield or anything, and they don't do much drilling during the season. And that was always something that I didn't like on the way that Boone manages the team. But I don't know what they're doing with the bunt side of the game.
If you're not practicing bunting, not ever, like, you're never going to have Aaron Judge or Juan Soto bunt. Okay, I know Juan Soto has bunted
Juan
for
Soto
hits,
bunts,
but he's not going to sack bunt. You're not going to sack bunt.
But he practices it.
My point is, if you're a guy like Trent Grisham, Trevino, There's other guys in the lineup too that you could see Sack Bunting in spots, maybe Glaber or Rizzo or LeMahieu in spots where, and you have to, if you're going to call that in a game, you have to practice it. So if you're not, as the coaches, having these guys practice it, then maybe don't call it in the game, because then you're just putting yourself in a bad spot. You're putting the team in a bad spot. You're putting the player in a bad spot.
Yeah, to be fair, they might be practicing this. I have no idea what they're doing.
And Trent Grisham just had crappy
and he just
attempts.
had a bad execution. Yeah.
Well, the Yankees are going to Kansas City this week. Talk about a little bit of a letdown on the series hype there. But if you're going to be in Kansas City and you want to go see a game, Game Time is the way to go. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, meaning buying tickets to a baseball game on Game Time is faster and easier than ever. The Game Time app has so many great features. I love the flash deals, so you can see what sections the best deals are in, all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkouts, and the seat views, so you can get real pictures from inside the venue from people who have sat in those seats. The app is streamlined and really great, really easy to use. It's a clean app. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets to sporting events, but you can also find tickets for concerts, comedy shows, theater, and much more. And to boot, the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less money, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Right now, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code BRONX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create an account, redeem code BRONX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Juan Soto, we already touched on some of this stuff, but just a quick timeline of how things went down, which I have some questions about. So Friday, not in the lineup, understood. Saturday, not in the lineup. But before Saturday's game, Boone said that an IL is a, quote, possibility for Soto, but he does not expect it to be the case. This was tweeted by Brian Hoke at 4:54 p.m. Then after Saturday's game, Boone said that Soto ramped up in pregame. Later, reporters said what that meant, and Boone said, I don't know all that he did, and he said it in like an angry, quick tone, like, shut up, I don't want to answer this question. So right there, I just don't understand what's going on. Before the game, you, in theory, as the manager, know that Juan Soto is, quote, ramping up, like as if he's preparing for a game just to see how it feels, but you're saying IL is a possibility still, and then after the game, you tell us he ramped up, but that he's also not going to be in the lineup for Sunday, but he might hit on Sunday. So it's just like, I don't know. It seems like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth.
And again, I think it's a lot of gamesmanship. I don't think they had really any intention for him going out there and hitting or playing this weekend. I think they, unfortunately, it was the Dodgers series. I think that was just a coincidence, an unfortunate situation, because obviously everybody wants him in this series. He wants to be in the series. It's probably the one that's the most difficult to miss on the calendar so far. But it just makes too much sense to have him sit down for a few days after the flare up here, because there's just, when you have a forearm like that flare up, and again, like, he woke up one day and it started hitting, but it's never gotten worse. It's not getting fully better, but it hasn't gotten worse. You don't know what it is. And if you're gonna pull him out of a game at that point, there are optics that are involved here. There are optics involved. You have to give him at least a bit of a rest to see if that thing can flare down. And if it can flare down with, without the normal baseball activity, then you're looking at something that's probably not that serious. If it doesn't flare down and it stays inflamed and stays in a position that's bad, then that might give you another signal for something else. And maybe it needs a longer extended stay for that to happen, because you don't want it to get worse. You don't want the forearm, which is connected to multiple things that can go very bad for a full season, to happen. So I'm totally fine with them sitting here. And I think that the speak of it, a lot of it is gamesmanship. Just like him on the top step, with a helmet on Friday night, Dave Roberts is like, nah, I'm not falling for that. Like, I don't think he was hitting at all.
Yeah. What if the rain delay didn't happen on Thursday? Does he finish that game?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, probably.
And then maybe he tells them after the game, feeling a little something in my forearm, so he doesn't play on Friday. It's just like, it's weird. Like, it happened during the rain delay. Is that it's probably a coincidence, but it's like, is that a coincidence? Is that convenient? Where it's just like, he had time to sit down. He's like, you know what? I don't really want to ramp back up to go play the rest of this game. So
I think that's yes, the delay is why they were sitting, but it's the sitting part. It's like, after a game, Does it get a little tight? Is it a little bit? Can you feel it after a game? Probably.
But then you've got the whole next day to ramp back up. So.
Yeah, and that was essentially the end of the game. With the rain delay, when you have
the
that
eighth inning when that happened,
that long of a delay as well. I'm just saying, like, as far as like the physical feeling of that, that's the player stopping. That's the player, not playing baseball any longer for an extended period of time. So I don't know. And then once they pulled him out of the game, that's when you're like, all right, well, now we've pulled you out of the game. Now, this has become, very much out there. And if it still is inflamed, we got to sit you. We just have to do it.
Yeah. One other note from Boone's post game on Saturday. So he was asked why he pulled Nestor out mid at bat. I think Hernandez was up, and Boone actually said that he had given the sign for a pickoff, but Nestor missed it and threw the pitch, and he wasn't supposed to throw the pitch. So good job communicating there, guys.
Yeah, that was and Nestor getting pulled after one pitch. The look on his face. I mean, granted, he should have been pulled, but
why is he out there for the sixth inning?
Yeah, I don't know. Trying to get a matchup.
Yeah, well, great. Nestor wasn't great. But again,
usually, and that's the thing. Like you get him at home, you're expecting him to be. At some point, the Nestor on the road is going to trickle into Nestor at home, and we're going to realize that he's just not executing pitches.
What if Nestor at home can again? It's a tough lineup. In the middle innings, that's a winnable game. It got away from them late in that game. I mean, Glaber's error leads to a grand slam. Not saying that's the only reason the grand slam happened, but like everything completely combusted, and I think that was the eighth inning.
Yeah, and Tommy Kahnle leaves the ball over the plate and gets smashed. So the game ended pretty quickly after that. But you should be able to go with some high leverage guys at that point for Nestor if you don't want him coming out for that inning at all. Like there's perfect opportunity at that point. Like Weaver, I think
Weaver was
11 pitches on Thursday, so he didn't throw on Friday. Very well could have come in for Cortez at that point.
Whether you are a world-class athlete or podcaster like us, we understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. That's why we're excited Unified Healing is sponsoring the Bronx Pinstripe Show. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or the EE system. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you are in the New York City area or hundreds of other locations around the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. If you are interested in experiencing EE system technology, then go to unifiedhealing.com/Bronx to learn more and find a center near you. That is spelled UNIFYD healing.com/Bronx. No material or testimonial on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including EE system. The last segment I want to do here, I guess we can briefly mention the pitcher. These are not pitcher records. These are team records in games started by Yankees pitchers. In Luis Gil games, Yankees are 11-2. Rodon games 10-3. I mean, we know how the offense pops off with Rodon on the mound. Stroman games, the Yankees are 9-4. Clark Schmidt games 8-3. Nestor Cortez 6-8. So he's the only one where they are actually losing. And then Cody Petit 2-1. That's interesting. All right, the last thing I want to do is I'm going to call it Scott's complaint corner.
Yeah.
Because I compiled just in text messages from you over the past 72 hours. These are some complaints that you had. Would you like to start with the Fox broadcast strike zone box?
Yeah, so there's a lot of people that complain about on the field stuff for the most part, and I get it. I tend to take more of a glass half full approach with the players, give them more leniency for whatever reason. But when it comes to aesthetics, there's not much room for error for me. Like the shit bothers me and then will stick with me forever. The Fox strike zone box on Saturday. What an atrocity. They literally changed the saturation inside the box. So anytime anybody walks in that box, if a catcher's glove hits that box, if his wristband hits that glove, if the pitcher somehow gets into that screen, gets all post-production, their ass changes color as well when they go inside that box. When you're looking at the high saturation box, so everything is a lot more, vivid and popping, then everything else looks dim. It's like they didn't turn the lights on in the stadium a little bit for a game when they have this box. I'm one for I kind of want to get rid of the box completely.
That's what I said.
I like it, where some of these the networks will have it like very, very faint so you can barely see it. Okay, if that's the happy medium, fine. But making it an oversaturated, like high attention, it's distracting, and it was distracting watching it. I hated it, and I know Fox has always been on the like the edge of their technology with the glowing puck and like the
giant robot on the NFL broadcast that comes and tells you it's third down.
Yeah, so they've always been they've had an affinity for going a little over the top with the graphics, but this is just like it's just so simple and looks dumb and it's distracting. So please stop doing it. Please stop doing it. Get rid of the box completely, or just give us a faint line. If people want to see it, then fine. You know what? How can we make it like SAP? We can turn it on and turn it off. That technology has to be there, right? Like, give me an overlay option.
I say get rid of it just so people stop bitching at umpires, because I'm just tired of it. It's like the strike zone box is the umpire's worst friend. It makes everyone on their couch an umpire.
Agreed. It's definitely made the umpire's job a lot more difficult in the eye of the
because
fan.
The TV overlay is not the exact strike zone. It's just not. That's impossible. We're watching a 2D image and it's 3D in life. You can't.
Yeah. You don't get the depth perception either.
Yeah.
And I know that they'll break it down and give you the cut version of it, but All right. The second thing, if I'm sticking with aesthetics, is Yankee Stadium is a precious place, but now there are soccer lines all over the outfield. And you can't not see it. I mean, this is Yankee Stadium first and foremost. And I love they gave the spotlight to some of the groundskeeper guys before the game was either the Dodgers series or it was the Minnesota series. And I love that. I love hearing those guys because they're a big part of the the experience when you go to Yankee Stadium. Them doing the YMCA, they're out there all the time. Like, they have personality. I love it. It's not their fault. This is not their fault. There are soccer games being played in the stadium, and I hate that you can see the lines. And so I need them to figure out some better way of liming the field with something that goes away and doesn't have a residue, so that it looks like Verdugo maybe Verdugo looked down and saw a white line and it confused him, and then he dove, cut in on a ball instead of going out. I don't know. Did
you see the burnt spot out in left field, which I have to imagine is where the goalkeeper stands, so it just got worn down?
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. I was just watching, I saw a bit, I think it was on GQ Instagram. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a story about Kevin Costner calling George Steinbrenner for them to use for the love of the game, because he pitches a no-hitter against
Yankee Stadium
against the Yankees, and the Yankees lose. And George Steinbrenner was like, Yankees can't lose. The Yankees can't lose. So he made up this whole thing about how in his story, in the background, the Yankees win the pennant and they win the World Series, but they lose this game. But so George wouldn't even let them film a movie for however long at Yankee Stadium. Now they're using it for soccer matches.
Well, you got to
rolling over in his grave.
You got to pay for the Juan Soto contract
in his cathedral as well. All right, next thing was stay in the stadium. The death siren, man. The Death Star siren.
You're done with it finally after 12 years. You're tired of it.
It hasn't been 12 years, but it's
been a long time.
Yeah, the Death Star blew up twice. Not one time. They blew it up twice. The Rebels blew up the Death Star.
Do you want to count the most recent trilogy, because they basically blew up a Death Star for a third time?
Okay, I have not seen. I'm sticking to the main movies because that's the only ones that are quasi age appropriate for Kemp. So that's what I've been watching. I haven't gotten into the other stuff yet. They blew it up twice. I don't know what else we need to say about that. Like, do we need to like make that public again and remember that the Death Star lost multiple times? I understand that the evil empire came, and the evil empire, frankly, came from when the Yankees were spending money when no one else was spending money.
That was something that Larry Lucchino of the Red Sox called the Yankees. That wasn't the Yankees calling themselves the evil empire. That was a negative thing someone else said about you.
And also, it was because of the dollars being spent.
Yes, there's inconsistency in the Yankees production, because when I don't know if they still do this, but I think they do, when they announce the opposing team's lineup, they play the Emperor theme. Dun, 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 dun. That's what they play when the other team's lineup is being announced. Then you play the Death Star siren, also the evil in Star Wars, when you're trying to strike a guy out. What side are you on?
Yeah. It's confusing, and and frankly, like,
where's Ryan Rucco, the biggest Star Wars nerd that connected to the Yankees? Ryan Rucco, go tell someone to be consistent here.
Yeah, or Cece bring in. I think that it would come with a little bit more authority if Cece came in dressed like Yoda. If Cece dressed like Yoda comes in and says this doesn't work, then we have. Can we
they
get
should
something?
Just put up instead of the Death Star sign, just put on the big board Cece dressed as Yoda going get loud.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. But yeah, I mean, and then just like to your ears, it's a terrible sound. It's a really awful sound. Like when you break it down, isolate that sound. It's awful. It's a horrible sound. Okay. Yeah. And then the last thing I'm going to complain about, which I appreciate this segment. This is fun. This helps me breathe for the rest of the week a little bit. Yeah. Is the fact that, it's not that I couldn't figure out Apple TV, is that you got to go through so many damn hoops to like log in and find the game, and I forgot my password, so I had to reset the password. Then the stupid pop-up notification wasn't happening on my other device that was right there. You got to make sure that it's on the right internet. And then if you don't have the app, you got to pay for it or you got to get the free trial and then remember, put it on your calendar, because you will forget to turn it to
that's what they're banking on.
I know. It's the athletic model. Like you just, it's only $199 until they hit you for the next 4 years because you keep forgetting. So you gotta jump through hoops now to get it on. And frankly, if you pay, I've said this before, if you pay for MLB TV,
you should get it.
You can't add these, like, okay, national broadcast traditionally.
There's like 20 games you can't get it's up to like 20 games.
They've taken the liberty of the national blackout game has now been extended to multiple streaming services and networks that are pushing it onto cable TV. So the Apple game, which is not part of a traditional cable network, and I understand like that model is essentially dead, but it's not. It's still there. They still abide by it when convenient. But that's a blackout game. So you have to go and get that specific channel and pay for that specific channel. Same thing with Peacock when they're doing the morning games. Same thing with ESPN. If you're not, it's crazy. You got to really like work for it now.
If you're an MLB TV subscriber, you couldn't watch any of the games this weekend.
I know.
They were all nationally broadcast.
Insane.
And then I believe the Amazon, I think you can still watch Amazon games.
You can. Okay.
But like, is that new? Because I feel like last year or 2 years ago when they started the Amazon broadcast, those were also blacked out on MLB TV.
I don't remember. They took on a lot more games, so it's more, I think,
my
about
dad
the advertising
I have an MLB TV account. My dad shares it so he can watch in Rhode Island. And I'm getting text messages like 3 times a week, like the game's not working.
Yeah. No, I know. It's frustrating, but that's it. Overall, really good fun weekend of baseball. Besides the result exactly, but it was good to see the Dodgers come in that competition. And the fan group that we were talking about, Pantone 294.
That was crazy. They were an army.
Damn, they had a lot of people walking out, and I think they had sections of probably groups of 50, and they were kind of scattered throughout, so they weren't all together. But pretty impressive to see how they traveled like that.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Hit us up with mailbag questions, info@bronxpinstripes.com for next episode, which will be after the Kansas City series.